Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Okay, today we've pulled together some really fascinating sources, genuinely asking us to rethink, well, what a story even is. Our mission is to dive into this pretty revolutionary approach to narrative from an author named John Oakley McElhenney. We're looking specifically at what these sources are calling a radical new kind of hyperfiction. Forget just reading a book, right? We're looking at sources talking about a huge shift, moving towards engaging with a dynamic system across different platforms. And this system seems to be creating something people are calling an RPA, participatory experience, but like entirely with words. It really makes us look at how experience mapping, US design is shaping creative writing now.
Absolutely. And what jumps out immediately is how that term hyperfiction has been, well, radically updated. Back in the 90s, it was this idea of post-digital literature, mostly just clicking hyperlinks, choosing paths. That was the hyperlink era, simple. But this new thing, McElhenney's version, the sources say it's not about clicking links anymore. It's about participating in a living ecosystem of narrative, one that actually co-creates with AI.
A living ecosystem. Okay, so the text isn't static, it's alive.
Pretty much, yeah. It grows, it changes.
Okay, let's unpack that because it sounds less like literature and more like, I don't know, system architecture.
Precisely. And his work, like ESK, for example, is apparently setting up a whole new genre. The sources call it AI integrated hyperfiction, but they also use these much bigger terms like liminal hyperfiction, or even, get this, mass intelligence art.
Mass intelligence art. Wow. That's a big claim. What's the thinking there? What justifies calling it that?
Well, the argument in the scholarship seems to be framing this as a fourth inflection in literary history.
Fourth inflection. Okay, break that down. Like, compared to what?
Think about the big shifts, right? First, maybe oral stories to written manuscripts. Second, the printing press boom, mass readership. Third, maybe digital text, hypertext, the early internet stuff. So this fourth inflection idea is that language, tech, and human consciousness are actually co-evolving now into this collective, dynamic art form. It totally challenges the idea of a finished, closed book. It embraces, nonlinear, unpredictable growth.
Right. So he's not writing standalone books. He's building these huge intertextual story worlds. The Reaper Soul universe is mentioned as this system built from parts, text, characters, ideas, recurring motifs.
Exactly. It forms this kind of hyperfictional network. And the sources emphasize you can jump in anywhere, a video, an audiobook chapter, just a fragment of text.
And still get meaning. You don't need to start at page 1.
Apparently not. You find connection and meaning regardless of the entry point, which is interesting, but maybe even more revolutionary is how the story itself grows, incorporates new stuff.
Which brings us right to the AI, doesn't it? The mechanics of this dynamic system. AI as a co-author.
Yeah, let's get into that. The sources are clear. The AI isn't just a gimmick. It's used as a tool, sure, but also a framework and even a collaborator. So the dialogue you might have with an AI in the story or images it generates, that stuff can become canon, part of the official story world.
Wait, hang on. If the AI is generating canon, doesn't that mess with the author's control? Like, who actually owns the story then? That seems messy.
It is messy. That tension is kind of the point, it seems. The sources suggest McElhenney acts more like a curator of the structure. He sets the rules, the starting points. He allows the AI to generate responses that reflect your input, your emotional state, folding your specific experience back into the bigger narrative. So he sets the philosophy. The AI handles the personalized interaction.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. And this interaction, this co-creation, is what powers that dynamic system across different platforms idea.
Exactly. It's described not just as a series of related works, but as a living narrative organism. It evolves across YouTube, LinkedIn, audiobooks, you name it.
LinkedIn. How does a story evolve on LinkedIn? That sounds like corporate synergy gone wild.
Well, maybe, but it's clever. Think modular. The author might post something on LinkedIn, maybe a reflection, a philosophical bit, like a diary entry that's now canon. Then the AI system can take that post, maybe combine it with audience comments or interactions, and use that as fuel for the next bit of prose or maybe a podcast segment it helps generate.
So themes, character thoughts,
Yeah.
they unfold in real-time fragments across different media. You'd have to follow it everywhere, like tracking a stream of consciousness.
Yeah, pretty much. It's this constant feedback loop, blending digital philosophy, memoir, fiction. And yeah, the story's essentially never done.
Which raises a huge question. If it's always changing, always incorporating real-time feelings, how do you even plot something like that? Or do you plot it?
And that leads us right into the next key area, narrative as experience design. This is where the UX stuff comes in, and it connects directly to gaming.
Right. The sources explicitly state he draws on UX user experience and even digital marketing design, using tools like experience maps, customer journey maps, but for structuring stories. It sounds like treating narrative like a product funnel.
It kind of is. Think about what a UX designer does, right? They map your journey through an app or website, click by click, noting where you get frustrated, where you feel satisfied, all to optimize, usually conversion or engagement.
Okay.
Here, that same mapping logic is applied to optimize emotional immersion. The map isn't tracking if you bought the thing. It's tracking your internal state shifts during the interactive parts.
So the map replaces the plot outline. Instead of event A leads to event B, it's feeling X leads to prompt Y, leads to insight Z.
You got it. That design structure, mapping emotional states, is what gives it that game-like feel people talk about.
And SK is the big example, described as a participatory mirror text.
Yeah, because it blurs the lines completely. Author, reader, platform, AI, it all blends together through this meta style and the interaction. The design of that interaction is what makes it feel like an RPG.
Which explains the fan reaction. We looked at Reddit, places like Archer Gaming. People were calling EC stuff like game-like narratives without games, or even an emotional RPG built from prose.
Yeah.
There's this strong feeling that, hey, narrative games aren't dead. They've just been distilled, maybe, into this literary form focused purely on the emotional core.
And the critics seem to pick up on that, too, saying the interactivity isn't just a feature. It's like a response to the AI age we're in, a philosophical experiment, really, on how human creativity and consciousness interacts with AI. And crucially, it's not just choose path A or path B. It's about the system reflecting your own emotional reality back at you.
Okay, let's go deeper on that feeling, the UX teardown part. What does it actually feel like for the reader inside the system? The testimonials really stress the emotional side, not just mechanics.
They really do. One person described it as kinetic and hyper-read. Listen, contemplate, a total sensory immersion, which is intense.
Oh.
Another said, every interactive moment feels alive as if the story is watching you read it. That feeling of being seen by the story seems central.
Like the story has presence. It's almost like an AI-generated player guide for a novel.
Yeah.
But instead of telling you where to find the hidden key.
It guides your self-reflection.
Yeah.
It nudges you to think about the themes in relation to yourself.
So how does the UX design achieve that? What's the mechanism for that feeling?
The core insight seems to be achieving emotional reciprocity. The system is designed not to focus on plot choices primarily. Instead, the AI prompts, the interactive bits. They focus on your state, your reflections. There's actually a guiding question quoted in the sources they use. What do you choose to feel like?
Not what do you choose to do,
Yeah.
but what do you choose to feel like? That's quite a difference from, say, old choose-your-own-adventure books or even many RPGs.
Massive difference. It fundamentally shifts your role. You're not just an observer steering the plot. You're an emotional participant. The system needs that emotional input to function. It ensures that the vulnerability maybe shown by the author in the memoir parts is met by your own self-reflection.
So it's more reflective because it emotionalizes the choices, doesn't just gamify them. The experience maps guide you towards introspection.
Exactly. It's structured to turn reading into something closer to, I don't know, like a meditation app that collided with an autobiography.
That's a really powerful way to put it. Okay, so synthesizing this. We're seeing this fusion of game design thinking, literary experimentation, AI dialogue, all creating these very personal, participatory mirrors rather than just static books.
Yeah, the bridge seems really clear, applying design principles like experience maps to structure this creative system. But maybe the most groundbreaking thing isn't just that the AI writes stuff. It's a deliberate use of the whole dynamic system to make you, the reader, more self-aware, turning reading from passive consumption into this active emotional participation.
Okay, so based on all that, here's a final thought to leave you with. If AI can act as this kind of mirror, guiding your emotional journey within a fictional story, what does that mean for things like traditional game guides? Could we see all kinds of media becoming these integrated, self-reflecting experiences where the main point of the product is actually to map and maybe even shape your internal emotional journey? Something to think about.